So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York.
Long Island Backstory.
Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory. I'm talking fast because I'm fired up today because I have an amazing guest, a real hero who fights for children's rights and for parents' rights. I have with me Dr. Monty Weinstein, or as you like to be referred to as Dr. Monty, who's been a longtime advocate for parents' rights, somebody who's got cojones and he's not afraid to stand up against the judge. And I'm going to get right into it. You can look at his resume online. He's got a huge resume, testified over 2,000 times as an expert witness, been on Matt Lauer, CNN, MSNBC, traveled all over the world, and is one of the premier alienation experts. If you don't know what parental alienation is, go to one of the previous shows and Google parental alienation, because everybody watching at this point, you should know what parental alienation is. Now we're going to talk about parental alienation and what can be done. First thing I want to talk about, because it's a sore subject with me, is law guardians. I had a woman named Kathy B. Small on Long Island. Stay away from this woman. I'm warning anybody, do not hire her as a private attorney. She's in the pockets of the judge. She does, from what law guardians, from what I can see, all they do is do exactly what the judge wants them to do. They read the judge, and if the judge wants them to screw the father, they screw the mother. If they want to screw the mother, they screw the mother. They have no mind of their own. They try to play psychiatrists. You know, they'll involve kids. They always tell you during a divorce, don't involve your kids in the divorce. These are adult decisions. We don't want to involve our children. And the first thing, these piece of shit law guardians, who are basically lawyers who suck shit, can't get any clients because they're so horrible. So they go in and they make $75 an hour screwing people. They're ambulance chasers in family court. They walk up to a kid who's 5, 6, 7 years old and say, who do you want to have custody? Where do you want to live? That's child abuse that they're doing. Who asks a kid where they want to live with? Then they go to court and they supposedly advocate. So I'm off my soapbox. Dr. Monty, what do you think about law guardians?
Okay. If anyone wants to know what I feel about law guardians, go onto my website, www.familyunity.com. I am on CBS throughout the country talking about law guardians. And they are the worst group of people going. You know why? They don't advocate for children. They co-counsel the case, in most times with the wealthiest law firm. They should be removed. They get rich on other people's misery. They don't advocate for the children. They don't really care where the children live. They are so integrated in the system that, unfortunately, what I have to say about them, there's a special place in hell for that group. And it's the same group in Brooklyn. It's Harriet Weinberger's group, the 18B panel. And I am not afraid at this stage of my life to stand up and well, I've been doing it for a long time. The reality factor is children should have a right and accessibility to both parents. If some of the parents are idiosyncratic, they shouldn't lose their children. Children should not be lost from unscientific tests such as MMPIs that has no inductive scientific probability factors. What should happen is the best people and this may sound so crazy, that could be judges in family court to decide children. I would get 2 custodians or janitors and 1 mental health person that doesn't have an axe to grind in any form. Children have the right to both parents. Absolutely. The First Amendment right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, if you take away a child, who gives these people this scientific validity to remove children when in reality, most of them are really screwed up themselves? and the reality factor is you've got to stand up and fight for your rights.
And you speak about fighting. When I talk about the law guardians, they're like a runaway train, and everyone says, my law guardian is horrible. They're doing these horrible things, but I'm afraid to say anything bad. I'm afraid to file a complaint because they're going to turn on me. They're going to turn on you anyway. They're not your friend. You got to put the law guardian in their place from day one. Put them in their place. They cannot testify. I've seen them all the time. The judges will say, "Oh, law guardian, what do you think?" And all of a sudden they'll start testifying like they're a psychiatrist.
Law guardians, I'm not saying mental health experts have the final say. I'm against mental health experts, as a matter of fact, because I sit on the board against coercive psychiatry. I'm against mental health experts, but they can be utilized. God gave them a profession to help people, not to remove children. Now, the ones that remove children are the worst of the worst. They wind up in court, and no one will go to them for help or for professional guidance. Most of them go to them to be inquisitors. The reality fact, so the law guardians call and have their mental health experts, but in reality, they start testifying, as Gary said. They have no expertise in anything outside of kissing judges' rear ends. And basically, the best they should be is maybe be a waiter in
There's no use for them. There's no reason for them to be there.
There's no use.
What's the reason for them? There's no reason.
What we should have, this is my opinion, and I'm drawing conclusionary statements before I lay my, foundation. I've been in this game a long time. I've seen children that were removed from fathers and mothers that are spending their whole life fantasizing to get that father and mother back into their lives. It's horrific and it's disgusting. Now, I'm not saying that someone should be removed because basically should not be removed if a parent is abusive. In other words, puts the kid in the oven or smacks the kid around to the point where the kid doesn't know what's happening. Yeah, you should remove that father or mother. But if someone acts idiosyncratic, they should not lose their children. If I'm a grown man in my 70s and I like to play with electric trains, that doesn't make me nuts. I mean, the reality is many of us have idiosyncratic tendencies, but every child should have a right to be exposed to his mother or father.
Yeah, I say that,
And anyone that goes against that is a traitor and is against the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment. And law guardians, as I said poetically, have a special place in hell. And because their whole function is to remove one parent. And they pay this, they get money from the federal government to do that. I am against regulations against parenting. And the reality factor is, I was non-conventional, and thank God all my children turned out well, and are turning out well, and are doing well. I don't want to talk about me because it's not about me. But I gave up my life to try to help people, and anyone that says you shouldn't see your kids, the first thing you should do is smack them in the face.
I say all the time, sometimes I'll go to court. In fact, I just helped a man recently, and you know what? He was an asshole. And everyone said, why are you going to help him see his kids? I don't want the judge determining who's an asshole, who's a good parent, who's a bad parent. Let the children, there's different ways of parenting. One judge may say, you know what, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in going to church or synagogue. And then the parent who's bringing their kid to the synagogue or to the church, to them, that parent is crazy. Why would you waste your time when there's no God? If you have a religious judge and the parents say, well, I'm not taking my kids to religious, they go, how dare they not do this? There's so many variables. And what was considered a good parent 10, 15, 20 years ago, today may not be. We used to say, oh, you smack your kid if he misbehaves. Today you go to jail. So it changes. So I don't want the judges determining who's a good parent. Again, abuse, a different story. But listen, a lot of judges, probably most of them would say I'm an asshole, right? Because they don't like what I do, I speak out. But I don't want them determining that maybe I am an asshole. But I don't want them determining who's, like you said, are they sound? Then the kid should have access to both of their parents. End of story.
What I want to at least to state to the audience is that parental alienation has a scientific validity more so than any psychological test. The reality factor is that if you have two parents and the child goes home to one parent and the next time the parent visits and they say, I don't want to visit with you, Daddy. I don't want to visit with you, Mommy. You're disgusting. That didn't come from a carrier pigeon. That came from somebody. That's empirical freaking validity. Psychological inventories, I could prove, but that could be on another show, have no basis of inductive reasoning. It's totally flawed from top to bottom, especially the Rorschach, but they don't let that get out. I've spent a good part of my life writing critiques on psychological testing, writing critiques on parental alienation, going up to Vanderbilt University, invited, presenting my papers. I am a kooky with scientific training, and the reality factor is no one should be deprived of their children. Anything which is systematically, methodically removing your children is a crime against God and a crime against humanity.
So you have an answer when you're on the witness stand, and the woman, and I'll use the woman because it's more often, and they say, well, did you send your child to go with their father? And the woman says, what can I do, Judge? Could I force them? I told them they should go, but they told me I don't want to go, Judge. And the judge will always turn around and say, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to drag them out of the house? My answer is, do you force them to go to the doctor? Do you force them to go to school? That message is very clear.
Let me give you
and you shouldn't be a parent if you can't do it. But go ahead, what's your answer?
The answer, in my opinion, is that you have to hold the mother and father accountable. This goes in a number of the cases that I've been in. You have to hold them accountable for what they do. So if little Junior says, I'm not going to visit Daddy, he's mean to me, he doesn't buy me all the things I want, doesn't give, the mother is supposed to say, that's your father, enjoy your time with your father. You are supposed to foster a relationship, not find reasons why you can't see mother and father. So family therapy is a little different than the methodology in traditional psychology. It takes in the family, and it also takes in the identified patient, who is basically, the one that's precipitating the alienation and the abuse.
So I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just want to tell a personal story to what you're saying is the truth. My kids were alienated from me, and it was about 1.5 to 2 years I hadn't seen my kids, of going to court every month, and my wife crying, I can't make the kids go. I can't. I promise, Judge. I wish I could, but I can't. Well, one day they got into chambers, and they were having a conversation, and we're saying the same thing. Of course she's an alienator. Of course she can make them go. She can control these kids and brainwash them. And finally, the judge said, you know what? For every day those kids don't go, I'm going to fine you $500. After 2.5 years of not seeing my kids, the day later, my kids showed up for their parenting time with me. What a freaking miracle. All of a sudden, and to me, that should have been the end of it right there. That's the proof that she was an alienator. Of course, the judge did nothing about it. She's since been semi-removed from the bench, but that's another show. I just want to get into we got so much to talk about. If you're past the custody, which a lot of people, they get past the custody, sometimes they foolishly give it up. They see their kids every other weekend and one weekend for dinner, and it's very easy to alienate somebody when they're hardly seeing the child. When you're seeing the child 5 days a month, it's very easy to alienate. So now somebody is alienated, they already have their custody battle, and then they say, what do I do? Do I tell the kids that I'm being alienated? Did I not tell them? Do I go back to court? How do you combat? Is it, in your opinion, that you should, in my divorce, a lot of people say I was responsible for the alienation because I didn't defend myself. I did what the court said, which is don't talk about the case.
First of all, the kids know about the case. So when you say don't talk about it, they're living it. That's number one. Number two, I am, for people that want therapy, I'm totally for it. You get a therapist, you form allies. You get a therapist that's willing to go into court and testify down the road that your kid will suffer by not having a relationship with mother or father. You understand? So in reality, if you lose your relationship with your kids, you have an ally that's going to validate the importance of you having a partner.
So let's just stop with this. That's important because a lot of times they'll get, they'll end up going to a therapist. First of all, a lot of them don't get alienation, but if you do get one that does, I say right at the beginning, stipulate that person who's doing the therapy will go to court. It should be known that whatever happens, that person agrees that they will testify in court. Some of them sign a paper that they will not go to court. But I say don't use that person. Only use who can go to court.
But there are many, unfortunately, therapists that basically are whores.
I'm not recommending, because I don't believe in family therapy for this, because so few of them, no alienation, and they become aligned with the alienator.
Right. But the point, right, I totally agree with that. Many of them identify with the alienator. You have to get a person, he or she, that doesn't have a bone to pick.
Right.
So we're
do your research, please. Do your research.
Do your research.
Interview them and ask them about alienation.
Right. This is a major battle. Why are we going to war? I mean, I believe in defending the United States more than anything else, but we're at a war at home. The breakup of the family, which is led by law guardians, some court evaluators, and some judges that are totally misinformed.
So what do you do? Again, we're going back to the person who's being alienated. And all of a sudden, it starts off with the mother makes all the kids' activities on the parent's weekend. So they're reduced from their 5 days a week to 2 days a week because the parent schedules every activity on the. And then what do? You're getting alienated. What do you do?
Don't say it's a fait accompli. I don't agree with that. You file motions with experts that are sympathetic to the importance of both parents having something to do with their children's lives. You file a motion, you validate it scientifically. You need
an expert. You need it. If you don't have it, it's going to be tossed out. I'm telling you right now.
You need an expert that has the guts to go in and fight the system.
And spend your money on the expert. Don't spend it, for the most part, on an attorney. There are a few that are good and they'll fight, but it's going to cost you a ton of money. I tell people, go pro se, at least up until the trial. Because these judges will make you come back every month for 16 months, and every visit's going to cost you $2,000.
Right.
Don't do it. Go pro se, and then maybe the day of the trial, hire an expert, hire a Dr. Monty to go in. Spend your money there. That's money well spent.
I'm not getting rich on my testimony because I'm attacked so many times, but I'm not afraid. I go in. What Gary just said just 2 days ago. Today is. What's today?
Today's Monday.
Monday, okay, it's Thursday.
I don't know what day you're watching this,
Right,
but it is Monday.
Thursday, okay, right. Thursday, I went in with this guy who is Indonesian, all right? He hasn't seen his kid for 5 years, all right? Because his wife said, you shouldn't see the kid because when the kid was 5 months old, you pasted the pacifier to the crib, all right? Okay, so you shouldn't see your kid forever. So I read his papers. I said the first thing you do is get rid of your lawyer and you go into court and I'll write something for you and I go into court with him. Now, I have experience going into court because I know what happens. I know the drill. So we go into Queens Family Court. The first thing they told me, out in the courtroom and I said, hey, I was here with Milton LaVorse when we went to federal court, and I opened up the federal courts. That's for everybody. So I'm going in. If you want to, you can arrest me. Okay? So they let me in, and then they said, let the client wait outside. I said, we're not going to hear evidence. I said, you're going to have to hear evidence because I'm not leaving until you do that. Make a long story short, the guy was he got full visitation. I mean, for the whole week, he didn't see his kid. He didn't even know what to do. He was so overwhelmed. All right? You have to stand up. You have to be an expert and an advocate. Another woman who was great, and I went in for, who, was black, was Miss America, which I didn't know at one time, and I went in, and because she had different, sexual choices in her life, they took away a kid, and one time she was depressed. I've been fighting for her. She has extensive parenting time now. The point that I'm bringing, this is not to advocate for Monty. I'm just saying my formula works. You have to have the guts. You can't get some expert that's afraid to speak up, and you have to make a record, and you have to do your homework, and you have to research, and you have to form friends like Gary Jacobs, who has the guts to fight for people and help them. And I want to thank you for being able to say.
But from what I see, it's time is your enemy, and the judges and alienators know how to use time, because the more time that goes by being removed, the harder it is. And what happens is people, like you mentioned depression, you remove somebody's kids, of course they're going to get depressed. So, situationally, or even if somebody has a predisposition to depression, they're going to be it's like going to jail. Imagine somebody losing your kids. Then they're depressed and they say the wrong thing, like Alec Baldwin. They scream, they say something stupid. Then the person goes to court and goes, "See, I told you he's a crazy person. That's why he doesn't see the kid."
Well, they said, I have a great relationship with all my children. And this one, thank God I'm not divorced. I drag her around all places. And she didn't talk too much tonight, but she's very verbal. Anyway, I was forced to take a psychological test when I went through trying to see my daughter Jacqueline, who I have a great relationship with. She's a doctor now, and okay. So they said, the psychologist, and Shilson was his name, I remember it. And he said, well, he has paranoid ideations. Okay, so I went to see him in his office. I was younger and tougher, all right? So I went into the office and I said, I have paranoid ideation. If I crack you over the head with this bat, could I use your diagnoses to defend myself? This is the God's honest truth. People who know me will say, hey, guess what? I got liberal parenting time.
Right.
You have to step across the line and have the guts to fight for your kids the same way people that are in combat, like my son in Iraq, have the guts to do what they have to do. We have 2 wars, at home and abroad.
So let's just go forward a little bit. Somebody's alienated from the child. They haven't seen, because sometimes it's happened slowly. It's like boiling a frog in water. They don't realize it's happening, and they can't believe it would happen. All of a sudden they wake up and they go, oh my God, my kids don't talk to me. They don't want to come. First they miss 1 visit, then 2 visits, and then they start mentally removing themselves, emotionally. Somebody's totally alienated. What the hell do they do, Monty?
You bring them to a therapist or someone to consult with to lay a foundation. That is the beginning stages of alienation.
But once it's done, 2 years, they haven't seen your kid for 2 years, what do you do?
Reunification therapy with someone that's been around town, like myself.
So you do reunification therapy?
I do a lot of reunification.
Because I didn't know there was anybody locally who did that.
Well, I do it all over the world. I go down and I sit for a weekend with people and I start stages. It's time consuming, and unfortunately many people have not worked out their transference and counter-transference. So many therapists start to identify with one of the people because of their hang-ups.
Absolutely.
And that's a whole other show.
That's
a whole
absolutely.
other story. And,
but you know about it.
I've done a lot of publications in terms of a number of things. And could I say something else?
Absolutely.
I'm coming out with a book, from my early days in gangs to becoming a therapist, which hopefully I finished, but we're trying to edit my group.
Do you have a name so people can Google it?
Well, it's not out yet. It's from the mafia to becoming a therapist.
So they can go on your website, which is what?
Which is www.familyunity.com.
Familyunity.com.
We're still tweaking the name. My administrator in Colorado, and that's a whole other story, because I met her fighting for a father who now has his kids, will say, we're working on the name. We're going to say organized mob, and carrying out my early days to fighting and becoming a therapist.
So I'm going to ask you, and you may not agree with me, the advice that I give to people when they first start with the divorce and they say, I want to have a relationship with my kids, I may want to fight for custody. They go to the lawyer, and traditionally they say, well, you're going to lose, so you should move out of the house, but you can still fight for custody if you move out of the house. I tell people, do not move out, because you will guaranteed lose custody if you move out of the house. It's your fucking house too. Do not move out. If you want to stay with your children and either get shared custody or full custody, do not move out of the house. Record every conversation that's there. But that's just my opinion. What's your opinion?
My opinion is you cannot move out of the house. I agree with Gary completely.
Lawyers will say move out.
Hey, guess what? So what? I mean, the point is, if you saw the first Jurassic Park, there was a lawyer there, and the dinosaur, he went to the toilet, and the dinosaur ate him off the toilet. Do you remember that?
Right, yeah.
See, look, you do not listen to lawyers. These are your kids. I represented many lawyers as an expert. You don't move out, because you know what they're going to say? You abandoned your child, abandoned.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
You can't get back in.
Right.
You're done. You're out.
You're done. It's a fait accompli.
Right, absolutely. What do you do? There are some good, I happen to have gotten lucky, and I didn't love my forensic, I had a forensic evaluation where they evaluate the family and who should get custody, and I didn't love mine. Mine was very good for me. I thought it should have been even better for me because my wife was so crazy and a sociopath and a narcissist, and in retrospect, it was good for me because if it was so much, it would have been overcome. But there are some people here on Long Island, Dr. McCann, I believe, is one of them, who just, I don't know if he's stupid, he's got a bone to pick, but he doesn't get alienation and doesn't believe in shared parenting and father. He's just a horrible, horrible person. And he's doing forensic evaluations. What if you get a bad forensic evaluation? Is it game over?
No. First of all, people don't know their rights. If you do not want to comply with the forensic evaluation, you talk to this guy and say, I'm not going to get a fair evaluation. If you look under the manual of custodial evaluations, you have to talk to me, and I have to be happy with you. I am not happy with you because of your a priori assumption on many things. So what I would say is you fight it from the beginning.
So set the groundwork from the beginning.
Set the groundwork from the beginning, and set the groundwork with the judges. Remember, you're not asking to become a billionaire. What you're asking for is your God-given right.
Amen.
Your link to your eternity.
Absolutely.
And your First Amendment rights. And if people laugh at that, they should be selling jelly apples in Times Square, not sitting on the bench.
I tell people from day one, you go to court and you say, Judge, all I want is to share my child. I don't want to remove the mother, the father. I want to share my child as close to 50-50 as possible. That's all I want. Maintain that from day number one. We talked about stipulations quickly, and we have a few minutes remaining. But I tell people, they always push you to stipulate. Don't go to trial, you're going to lose. Stipulate. And they say, here's what the lawyers say. Don't worry, just stipulate. The law guardian wants you to stipulate to every other weekend, but don't worry because it's only temporary. And then at the end, we'll revisit it and you'll get custody back and you'll end up getting shared. I say bullshit. Once you sign that, you send the message. Man, we're going to have to do a lot of bleeps on this one, but I'm passionate about it. Don't sign it. You can appeal it. If you go to trial and you lose, you're not done. If you stipulate to it, you're done. End of the road, you're done.
You cannot stipulate. I totally agree with you. You cannot, once you stipulate, there's no appeal.
Right.
The appellate process
and they know it.
is totally over. That's why they want you to do it.
They know it all the time. The judges don't want to make a decision. They rather, and what they do is they call the judges into the back, the lawyers, and they say, here's what's going to happen at trial. They don't know. Dr. Monty didn't testify yet, but they tell you, here's what's going to happen. Your client's going to lose. So just go out there and get your best deal and stipulate to a shared we'll give you shared custody, which is a bunch of nonsense. There's no such thing. Whoever's the custodial parent gets the thing. I say the only thing you stipulate to is shared parenting, as close to 50-50 as possible. Don't put any money incentive on seeing your child because it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. There cannot be a money incentive. We're running out of time here. There's going to be plenty more shows on with Dr. Monty, so please go ahead and Google Dr. Weinstein Long Island Backstory, and you'll see our other shows. There's so much more. And again, as when I spoke to Dr. Monty, I said the problem is you're out of financial reach for people because by the time we get to this stage, the lawyers have sucked up most of our money in many cases. And a disclaimer, there are some good attorneys, just like there are some good judges, and I would dare to mention their name because then they would be persecuted in the courts. But there are more shows out there. Look up from the beginning. Don't wait till it's too late. If you see any signs of alienation, start at the beginning. Start opening up a dialogue with somebody like Dr. Monty. Dr. Weinstein, thank you very much for coming to the show, and I appreciate it. I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us on Long Island Backstory. Please, it doesn't cost anything. Go to the bottom of your Facebook page and click share. Email this to anybody you know anywhere in the world who is having a problem with alienation. There are options. There's not many people who will help you, but there are some. You need to educate yourself. Thanks again.